you have done the GAPS diet, not for yourself, but for your husband. Is that right?
No, I have done the GAPS diet for myself because I am celiac, cross-reactive with dairy, egg, nuts, you name it, quinoa, seeds, grains. My gut's a mess. I had all these food intolerances, terrible arthritis, all kinds of other health issues. And I went and did an IgG intolerance test, which showed what I was intolerant to. So I cut those out, and my health improved so much that my husband noticed it and started eating my way.
Okay.
And then I went...
That's a very good testimony.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I went from 115 kilos down to 75 without trying, eating like a pig, and just not the things I was intolerant to. Plus, of course, my arthritis disappeared 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So that is quite a thing. And then he found that was better without gluten and dairy, and of course sugars. We finally eventually got rid of those as well. And of course he was then also diagnosed with this nodular melanoma, which, as you know, is a very deadly one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how he's still alive, we put it down to he started eating my way, which was basically a full GAPS diet.
When
even
you
though
say
we didn't
full,
know it.
would you elaborate on that when you say a full GAPS diet?
Okay, with GAPS, you've got 6 stages of introduction. And then you go on to full GAPS.
Okay.
Now, full GAPS allows you the nuts, the seeds, the vegetables, the meat, but it doesn't allow you grains or starchy vegetables. It allows you fruit.
Okay.
And his change of diet seems to have boosted his immune system enough to keep it at bay, although he did end up with 16 nodules removed from his arm, slowly creeping up towards his lymph nodes, of course. But it was quite interesting because he's a marine engineer, so he works on ships, and he was doing a month rotation here on the UK on the tug, and we noticed that when he was on the tug, his nodules grew, and when he came home, they either didn't grow or they got softer, and they got softer. So, that showed us that diet was possibly something to do with it. And then they removed his 12th node, and they said, okay, you stage 4, here's the Macmillan nurse, sort of kind of prepare to die. And she said, your best defense is a strong immune system. So we just, I started researching, and we started refining his diet to go to a strong immune system. And then I came across the GAPS diet and decided I needed it for myself more than anything else.
Yeah.
So I went and qualified as a GAPS practitioner with Dr. Natasha in London.
Okay.
And then, of course, he had a couple more nodes that needed removing. And then we came across the ketogenic diet, advocated by Professor Thomas Seyfried.
Yeah, my daughter is doing that one.
Okay, all right, fine. Well, you see, my husband is rather skinny, right? He's only 61 kilos, or at that stage he was 61 kilos. So Thomas Seyfried, as you know, suggests that you actually go on a 10-day fast.
Yeah. So
he started in October with a ketogenic diet, and in February he could feel a little nodule. Now, he feels them long before the doctors do, which is very funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact,
live there. He lives there, so it's something which
exactly.
is, I believe, very obvious.
Yeah. And, of course, it was very funny because they sent him for a PET scan, and he knew he had 3 nodules, and they didn't even show up on the PET scan. But they grew later. They grew slowly. But anyway... So he noticed this in February, and we decided, okay, I can't put him on a 10-day fast because he was right at the bottom of his BMI range. And that would be dangerous because he'd just start eating off his muscles. So I adapted the GAPS protocol of bone broth into the fast because it's alkalinizing, as you know.
I realized that
I saw your comment this
dramatically.
morning.
I woke up this morning and what was my scale? First time ever, I've tried every possible thing and I was down to 7.4. You know, like that's really an incredible record for me, just being on the broth.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the broth has got the right minerals, if you think about it. Anything alkaline has got the alkaline minerals, as you know.
Yeah.
And of course, broth is just full of calcium, magnesium, and alkaline minerals that your body needs to go alkaline.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we did is we have a glucose meter for him. So he took his blood sugar morning and blood sugar readings, and he did have one incident on day number 5 where it went down to 2.7 in the afternoon.
I think at a certain age and a certain body posture, you just have to have those toys, and you're checking. I check all the time as well.
No, for someone on the ketogenic diet, it's essential.
Yes,
you have to have it on a ketogenic diet, and so it was quite interesting in that at 2.7, normally you'd be a hospital case.
Yeah.
But all he could do is he couldn't do mental arithmetic at the time. Otherwise, he felt fine. All throughout, he could work, and he still did his HIIT exercise regime and that sort of thing, goes running in the forest and stuff. And it was very interesting because on day 7, the nodule had disappeared, and he kept it up to day 10. And to date, it has not returned. Whereas before, he would wait about 3-4 months and he'd start growing another nodule after the last one was removed.
Yeah, I have exactly the same story just with a young man. He just went onto the GAPS diet and started a ketogenic diet. And his melanoma, he had small cell melanoma, very dangerous, stage 4 in the lymph nodes already. And they just sent him home, and within 4 weeks, all disappeared.
Fabulous. So that's another person that has been using the ketogenic diet, and it's worked. Yeah.
Well, for myself, I'm in the same boat. You know, like when I was little, I had no care about all those things. I was eating loads of sugar, loads of dairy, lots of protein. And especially milk out of the fridge. I was addicted to milk, and it was really something. And I was wondering why I had hay fever and skin eczema and all of those things galore. And it was, nobody ever brought that in correlation, that one had to do with the other. And since I stopped eating all my allergy foods, it's all gone, completely gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'll find that on GAPS after a while, depending on how you go, you will be able to introduce some of those foods back, although dairy is a difficult one if dairy is your problem. You might never be able to introduce that one, but a lot of the other ones you might well introduce. Like, for instance, I've managed to introduce things like garlic and ginger, which of course I was reacting to before. So, but my whole family has got, out of myself, my 2 brothers, my nephew, and my niece, all 5 of us are gluten, and 4 of us are dairy.
Yeah. Well, I will introduce in my next emails the food exclusion diet, which I did personally, and it's probably the most amazing experience, because if you leave all of those things away, like I do now with the GAPS, and then afterwards, I introduce one after the other, but I do it very controlled, and I check how my body reacts. Then I learn not only what I'm sensitive to, I also learn how it feels. And I think that's a very important one. You know, like everybody goes about superfoods, and superfoods are good, and it's really important to have superfoods. I react, for example, to cacao powder, to choco powder, dramatically.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't work with me. I get instantly swollen tonsils, I get a body reaction, I get tired, I get everything, which is a pain in the neck because I really love it. But my body doesn't agree with it.
Well, the trouble is, of course, everything you love is what you've got a problem with. It's because your body's trying to counteract the pain it causes it, and that's why you get addicted to it, of course.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but of course, I'd never have picked up things like garlic and raspberries. And, that's why I went for the IgG test. Cyrex Labs has got a very good test now where they test for cross-reactive as well.
I have to say, I come off that IgG test very much. There's too many false positives, too many false negatives. I have people that are allergic against everything that had results back with hardly any. And in my case, it was pretty accurate, but it really is very variable. So I believe that self-testing and finding out for yourself and really doing it proper, I react to almost all nightshades. I react to pumpkin. And so it's something that we need to find out, I believe, a lot more accurate on our own.
Yes, no, sure. What I found is the IgG gave me an idea of what direction to head in. And then from there on, I carried on going in the right direction. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So your husband
Sorry, my husband's just...
So your husband is doing well?
Oh, yes, no, he's doing very well. He's doing very, very well. He's probably the fittest person you've come around. He runs rings around the youngsters.
May I ask at what age he is?
He's 65 in October.
65, and you reversed cancer, and he's fit, and it's incredible. And just by following a very intelligent approach to diet, what that can do is incredible. And I realize that every single time I speak to people that have reversed their cancer, it's lifestyle change and it's diet, and it's always diet involved.
Yeah. Diet, and also, of course, being a marine engineer, he lives, of course, in diesel and oil, which is, of course, carcinogenic.
Yeah.
And we can't really reduce that much, because it's his job. But hopefully in the future, I'm hoping my nutritional practice will take off, although it's difficult because at the moment we're sitting up the middle of a river. And then he'll be able to give up being an engineer.
Yeah, but the next thing is also there is plenty of detox possibilities to do. Like I have just done today the far infrared sauna, and I tell you what, there is nothing more cleansing. I have now done quite a few people on their first round. When they do the first hypothermia treatment or deep tissue sweating, their towels, when you use a white towel, it comes out yellow. It's so extremely full with toxins, and we usually don't even wash them. We just throw them out the first 2 times.
Yeah, that I can imagine. You see, the thing is that, as you can see, we're living on a boat at the moment. That's the rest of the bridge you can see behind me. Okay. So things like infrared saunas and hypothermias are not really an option at this point in time, sadly.
Yeah. Well, the dome is quite small. You can put that in any corner. But I know I've been living for 6 months in an RV, so I'm pretty familiar with tight spaces. Yeah.
Well, we've lived on a boat all the time, and funnily enough, after he was diagnosed with melanoma, we went off sailing, and it kept away for a very long time. Only here, of course, when we got to the UK, did it start coming back, but that was also to do with vitamin D, because of course here in the UK you just don't make it between October and April.
You know, when I said, what would you do when you were diagnosed with cancer? I just got my test reports back. C-reactive protein, and here is my vitamin D. What would you guess? You know, me teaching it to everybody, telling everybody what to do. I am on low 13. That's what I'm ridiculing everybody, that they should never go that low. And what am I?
Yeah, vitamin D is a monster. You see, the trouble is if you are, this is why Dr. Natasha doesn't advocate vegetarian diets, because you just don't get enough cholesterol. If you don't have enough cholesterol, you just don't make enough vitamin D. It's just that simple.
Well,
you see,
I have to admit, you know, my kind of vegetarian was a spiritual type of vegetarian, and I call it today a Twinkie vegetarian, non-violence. And I was always wondering why the Dalai Lama is eating meat and all the lamas eat meat, and they're still very spiritual people. So it was kind of a screwed up thinking, but it was not an intelligent way of using a diet. And my wife always urged me to take fish capsules and this and that, but I'm not good with supplements.
Yes, my husband isn't either. He hates having to take these things, but he's getting better now as he realizes the best thing. I did this cancer nutrition course with Hawthorne University, and that was very enlightening too. Very good. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, there is a lot of things that we need to adjust and adapt and go away from that. What I always realize, the more you go back to the basics, the greater the success. The more you go into treatments and ointments and which remedy and what type of cancer and use black salva and do that, everybody sells you that stuff, but nobody wants to get back to the roots.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is it. Everybody doesn't want to be uncomfortable. And of course, most people are addicted. And as you know, the things they're addicted to are sugar, gluten, and dairy. The three big baddies, and I myself, I was a chocoholic. I'd get up at 2:00 in the morning, and if there wasn't chocolate in the house, I'd get in the car and drive to the nearest place to buy chocolate. How addicted can you be? Technically, I should be the one with the cancer because we were poisoned on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and I ended up with severe edema of the respiratory tract through urethane foam. And as you know, urethane is highly carcinogenic. Yeah. But then reading Dr. Otto Warburg's story, urethane, if you have it in large doses, kills the cells. So you don't turn carcinogenic. Yeah. And that's what I reckon saved me, is the fact that I had it in such a large dose. Ended up losing the boat, ended up in Brazil in hospital having my lungs washed out and all kinds of things. It was interesting. Yeah. I was blonde, so I didn't know I had to die,
But you have to say, our bodies are miraculous, aren't they? What they can recover from, what kind of damage we can do to them. If we turn around, and certainly there is a point of no return, but that's very late. Our bodies are absolutely incredible in recovering when we do the right thing.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic. I was also vegetarian for 10 years because I drove commercial fishing boats for 3 years. And after the 3 years, I just couldn't stand the way they were pulling up these tiny little fish and thinking they're big he-men, I wanted to put them on the end of the hook instead of the fish, Yeah. So I went vegetarian for 10 years, much the same thing, couldn't stand the killing. But of course, I didn't realize that gluten and dairy are intolerance, are problems in our family. And of course, I had asthma as a child and all that sort of stuff and hated milk, but my mother forced me to drink it because it's good calcium, because I was born with a collapsed sternum and, possible rickets. So, which I find now the collapsed sternum is more a spina bifida problem, similar kind of thing with the methylation pathway. Yeah. But she thought it was rickets, so she puts me on tons of calcium and milk. Of course, now we know that milk doesn't help you with calcium and osteoporosis.
There's a beautiful new book. There's a beautiful new book, Death by Calcium. And it's a really, really stunning book. I've just been starting to read it, and it blows everything upside down, the whole concept of calcium. So that's something we need to learn a lot more about.
Oh yeah, well of course your arteriosclerosis is also caused by calcium, because if you don't have K2, as you know, in the bloodstream, of course it doesn't tell the calcium where to go. Exactly. It's like the policeman, and then it ends up in the veins and arteries. So so calcium too much is not good, but not enough is not good either, because of course it fires the neurons, so we need it.
Like everything in balance.
Yeah, and your body can sort out the balances. So if you're taking it in through food, and you imbalance, like seaweed for iodine, for instance. If you eat tons of seaweed and your body's got enough iodine, it'll kick it out. Yeah. But if you take it in other forms, then it could be a little bit of a problem if you don't know what to look for in the overdose side. Yeah. But iodine is another reason people are getting cancers, because again, iodide more than iodine is necessary for the skin. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is it. To us, it was a choice because we didn't have the finances to go to, Gonzales or Gerson or any of these others, or even when we were cruising on our boat in Spain, the Budwig clinic in Malaga was quite close to us. We were in Gibraltar, but it was just too much,
Well,
so we had to find a thing that we could do ourselves.
Yeah,
the ketogenic diet came up trumps.
That's what I mean. If you look at the concept, you go there for 3 weeks. Yes, for imminent treatment of the cancer, to reduce the cancer, it's actually really helpful. And if you look what the German clinics do with their local hypothermia and hypothermia to really get rid of toxins and to address the cancer very massively, but it doesn't take away all the other things that you need to do when you go home. And this is where I believe my main job is, to bring that home to people, that it's not just the treatment, it's actually everything else that is almost more important.
Yeah, it's absolutely lifestyle. Yeah. And what people don't realize is that some of the detoxification pathways, of course, need an alkaline environment to be able to work.
Yeah.
And of course, most of them need very good quality protein.
Yeah.
If you don't have good quality protein, you can't detox.
Well, the eternal battle between the vegetarians and the choosers, and I really believe we need to build a bridge. There is a lot of good if you think about juicing, and I've done it now many times, and I've lost weight with it, and I feel great, and I detoxify. But we know that juicing is a cleansing diet, and it's a replenishing diet, but it's not a repair diet. Whereas the GAPS diet and the ketogenic diet is more for repair and nurturing and bringing back the constitution to the body.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I learned on the cancer course is that they refer to anabolic and catabolic diet. So the catabolic diet cleanses, but it breaks it down. Because it's cleansing, it breaks the body down. And that's your vegetables, because vegetables do that.
Yeah.
So vegetables are cleaning, but animal products are building. Basically, if you get a person who's very depleted, you can't put them on a catabolic or cleansing diet because it's not going to be beneficial to them until you build them up. Yeah. So you've got to build them up first before you put them on that cleansing diet.
Yeah.
And the tragedy is, vegetarians, we know, they can get some vitamin B12, but vegans, they're in trouble.
Well, I have never been a vegan, but I have to say, when I started first eating meat, I found it disgusting. It was really like the whole family looked at me and said, like, Daddy, now you're crazy. First 20 years of no meat, and then all of a sudden you start eating meat. What should we think about you? And pretty much everybody else did the same thing, and we lost actually a lot of friends because we left the tribe. But I felt so great. My energy levels went up so incredibly, and my digestion started to repair, and it was really a huge relief. And certainly it was not only the meat that was doing it, I was also eating at that stage no grains anymore, no gluten. So it all comes together into one package that fits to each individual.
Yes, no, absolutely. And the thing is that some people do better on and more vegetables, as with the metabolic typing. I'm sure you've come across the work of Kelly and Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at trying to get the pig pancreatic enzymes that Gonzalez uses.
Yeah.
Because, that makes a lot of sense, that it actually, really helps clean up cancer, road cancer cells.
Yeah.
The pancreatin,
Yeah, we've been using the WOBA enzyme, being original German. And I really like them because they are very powerful pancreatic enzymes. They have like a huge variety, and I really like them.
Okay, what is the make you said?
WOBA enzyme. Well, that was a real pleasure talking to you. You've given me some deep insights, and I will study the GAPS now a lot more. I actually never looked at GAPS, and it was funny.
Yeah.
When I was deciding to do my inflammation, I actually went to a local store, and they do juicings, fresh cold pressed juices. And you just go there and you pick up a tray of 6 glasses or 12 glasses, and they're all cold pressed, freshly made, and it's really easy, and it's almost the same price if I make it myself. So I went there and I talked and I said, Marcus, if you start out and you have high inflammation, why don't you start first with a week of broth? And I was like, I've never eaten or drank broth. I actually never even considered it. And then she told me her story with her children having celiac, having eczema, having all sorts of mental problems, ADHD, ADD, everything. And she herself was laden with skin eczema. And she said, I went onto a broth diet or GAPS diet for 2 months, and everything was gone. And her children are completely back to normal. All problems gone, all symptoms gone. And she's now on a 2-year program to really recover and heal their gut. And that's actually the first time that this popped into my head as a possibility, because I was probably as ignorant as anybody else before that that's something that could work.